Hello, and welcome to a new episode of our podcast. Today, we're diving into the topic of occultism. Ready? So then, let's begin. Occultism, from Latin occultus meaning hidden, concealed, secret, is a vague collective term for a variety of phenomenon areas, practices, and worldview systems, where occult can roughly be equated with esoteric, paranormal, mystical, or supernatural. Often the term carries a negative connotation and is associated with black magic or evil practices. Fundamentally, however, the term is neutral. Occultism encompasses a wide range of fields, some of which I'll explain shortly, but first and foremost, it deals with the otherworld. Otherworld. This term refers to a world beyond the known, real world. In the otherworld, different laws apply, so earthly notions of space, time, matter, and energy no longer hold true. The mythologies of peoples are shaped by the most diverse conceptions of the otherworld. Imagine you open a door no one knows exists, a door not made of wood or metal, but of liquid shadow and shimmering light. Beyond it lies the otherworld, a realm that towers beyond all boundaries of our familiar reality, a place so alien, yet so familiar that it both enchants and confounds your senses. Here, in this hidden dimension, the rules we take for granted, space, time, matter, energy, are mere illusions, fleeting dreams that dissolve in the wind of the otherworld. It's a place where the stars don't just shine but whisper, where time twists like a river flowing backward and forward, and where matter dissolves into mist only to reappear as a glowing spark. The otherworld has captivated humanity since time immemorial. In the ancient sagas and myths of peoples, it lives on in 1,000 forms, sometimes as the shimmering fairy realm of the Celts, where time stands still and a single day can mean centuries in the human world, sometimes as the gloomy underworld of the Greeks, ruled by Hades, where shadows of the deceased wander in eternal twilight. The Norse sagas tell of Asgard, the heaven of the gods, and Hel, the realm of the dead, where the boundaries between life and death blur. In the stories of the indigenous peoples of the Americas or Africa, it appears as a spirit world, a place where ancestors communicate with the living and nature itself possesses a consciousness older than time. What makes the otherworld so fascinating? Perhaps it's the idea that anything is possible there, that the laws binding us here have no power there. In this world, mountains could float, rivers could flow with light, and the line between past, present, and future could be as permeable as a curtain in the wind. Some say the otherworld is a mirror of our deepest desires and fears, a place where our soul dances free from the shackles of logic. Others believe it is a gateway to a higher truth, to a reality we can only glimpse if we dare to look beyond the edge of the known. For the initiated, the occultists and mystics, the otherworld is no fairy tale but a destination. They see it as a place one can reach through rituals, meditation, or visions, a realm accessible only to those willing to shatter the limits of their own perception. Ancient texts speak of shamans who journeyed there in trance, of alchemists who sought the philosopher's stone, which promised not only gold but also access to these hidden planes. It is said that the great mysteries of this world, the secrets of life, death, and the universe, are preserved in the otherworld, like treasures in an infinite library whose books only the boldest dare to read. The mythologies of peoples are steeped in these notions, and each culture has crafted its own version of the otherworld, colored by its fears, hopes, and belief systems. In Celtic tradition, it is a place of beauty and danger alike, inhabited by fairies who might seduce the wanderer to remain in their world forever. In Japanese mythology, the otherworld exists as Yomi, the realm of the dead, a dark place ruled by the goddess Izanami. And in the stories of the Maori of New Zealand, it is a place of transformation, where the souls of the deceased can be reborn if they pass the trials of the spirits. Yet the otherworld is not merely a relic of old tales. Even in its time, many felt its pull. In esoteric circles, It was often equated with parallel dimensions or levels of consciousness, a concept that bore surprising parallels to emerging theories of the cosmos. Sages and philosophers mused on multiple dimensions permeating our universe, dimensions we cannot perceive with our senses, but which nonetheless exist. Could it be that the ancient myths were right? That the other world was not fantasy, but an echo of a reality we are only beginning to fathom? Some occultists claimed they had touched this world through meditation, substances, rituals, or sheer will. They spoke of visions in which they communicated with beings neither human nor animal, of landscapes that constantly shifted, and of a silence louder than any sound. These stories were hard to prove, yet they carried a power beyond facts. They touched something deep within us, a memory of a time when the world was still full of mysteries and every shadow told a story. The other world challenged us to question our notions of reality. It was a mirror in which we could see our own boundlessness and our fears of transcending it. Perhaps it was the place where we might finally understand that the universe is far greater than we could ever imagine, a place where the stars not only shine but sing, and where every question finds an answer, if only we dare to listen. Today, occult sciences often serve the few initiated to help them achieve successes denied to others, elevating them above the masses, whether spiritually, economically, or both. It is likely that certain occult practices were already employed in the Middle Ages. Astrology, for example, is a very ancient method of foretelling the future. There was a time when the natural sciences, such as physics, chemistry, or medicine, had not yet been discovered, and people believed that thunderstorms, storms, or illnesses were caused by gods or witches. Belief in a spirit world was strong because people could not otherwise explain certain phenomena. It is assumed that occult practices were then carried out in the form of astrology, a very old method of seeing the future, alchemy, a precursor to modern chemistry, and magical rites, Satanism, Spiritism for summoning spirits. The fascination with occult rituals. There are moments in life when the world seems to stand still, moments when we wonder what lies behind the veil of everyday life, what awaits us around the next corner. This curiosity, this burning desire to know what the future holds, is as old as humanity itself. And it is precisely here that the fascination with occult rituals begins, a pull that draws us into a world of secrets and wonders, a world that is both enticing and terrifying. In an era of ancient knowledge and superstition, the old ways were not forgotten but revered. Seekers turned to tools like tarot cards, pendulums, or scrying glasses, believing they could pierce the veil of time. Why do we do this? Because we are human, driven by the question, what comes next? Will we find love, achieve success, survive? These rituals were like windows into another reality, whispers from the invisible, promising answers that science could not provide. The allure of the inexplicable was overwhelming. It was as if an unseen magnet tugged at our souls, drawing us to the edges of the known, where the light of reason grew dim and shadows stretched longer. A deck of cards, a piece of metal on a chain, a simple glass, they became portals, tools with which we challenged fate. Yet with this fascination came a quiet, tingling fear. What if the cards revealed something dark? What if the pendulum spoke a truth we didn't want to hear? The supernatural had a dual nature. It promised knowledge, but also threatened the unknown, forces we might not control. This tension between curiosity and fear was nothing new. Centuries ago, people sought to unravel life's mysteries with methods as brilliant as they were dangerous. One of the most captivating of these adventurers was Alexander, Count of Cagliostro, a figure who haunted the 18th century like a phantom. With his magical arts, a blend of alchemy, hypnosis, and charismatic deception, he managed to dazzle the highest circles of Europe. Royal courts, usually impressed only by power and wealth, hung on his every word, captivated by his promises of eternal youth, hidden knowledge, and divine insight. He was a man who blurred the lines between reality and illusion, a master of spectacle who ensnared the powerful with his rituals and visions. Cagliostro was more than just a charlatan. He was a symbol of occult power. As a magician and Freemason, he moved within a network of secrets where symbols, rituals, and vows of silence were the currency. His rise was spectacular. In a short time, he became a legend, a man who seemed to outwit the laws of nature. But with fame came suspicion. Was he truly a genius with access to ancient, hidden traditions, or merely a cunning fraud who exploited the greed and fears of his contemporaries? No one could say for certain, and perhaps that was precisely what made him so fascinating. As a magician and Freemason, he achieved rapid fame, but equally rapid discredit. It was never determined whether he was merely a brilliant fraud or indeed had access to the occult traditions of the time. His story took a dark turn when he was accused of heresy. The church, viewing his practices as a threat to its authority, sentenced him to death. Yet in a final act of mercy, his punishment was commuted to life imprisonment. Thus ended the life of a man who balanced between belief and doubt, between wonder and deceit, a life that revealed just how powerful and perilous the allure of occult rituals could be. But why do these rituals captivate us time and again? Perhaps because they offer a fleeting sense of control over the uncontrollable. In a world often chaotic and unpredictable, they provide an anchor, a promise that we are not alone, that there are forces guiding or protecting us. At the same time, they touch our deepest fears, the fear of what we cannot see, cannot understand, cannot master. Each card we draw, each pendulum we swing, is a step into a territory that both attracts and terrifies us. In the shadows of history, hidden from the prying eyes of the public, existed places of such mystique and power that even the whisper of their names inspired both awe and fear. The lodges of the Freemasons, the secret chambers of the Templars, the tangled networks of the Illuminati. These secret societies were more than mere gatherings of like-minded individuals. They were guardians of knowledge as old as humanity itself, knowledge encoded in symbols, rituals, and vows of silence, ready to be revealed only to the initiated. In the lodges of the Freemasons, which reached their peak in the 17th and 18th centuries, more than mere brotherhood was cultivated. Behind locked doors, often in ancient castles, hidden cellars, or remote manor houses, members studied occult practices rooted deep in the traditions of alchemy, Kabbalah, and Hermeticism. These rituals were no mere ceremonies. They were keys to another reality, to a world where the boundaries between matter and spirit blurred. Once admitted to a lodge, each novice was introduced through a solemn ritual, during which they swore a named vow of silence, an oath as binding as a blood pact. These oaths were not merely symbolic. It was said that those who broke them were cursed with afflictions as old as time itself, curses that could bring madness, ruin, or worse. The rituals themselves were a dance of light and shadow, a choreography of symbols and gestures understood only by the initiated. There was the Great Circle, a ceremony in which members gathered in a circle to make contact with the other world using candles, incense, and ancient formulas. Whispers spoke of the Key of the Seven Seals, a lost artifact said to have the power to open the gates to eternity, a secret known only to the highest degrees of the Freemasons and never recorded in writing, but passed from mouth to ear. These rituals were often marked by almost theatrical precision. The room was marked with geometric patterns in chalk or sand. Symbols like the Eye of Providence, the compass, and the square were projected onto walls, and participants wore robes embroidered with stars, planets, and alchemical signs. The symbols themselves were more than mere decoration. Every line, every mark carried a deeper meaning, a layer of significance that peeled back like an onion the higher one climbed in the hierarchy. A little-known detail, there existed a secret script called the Language of Shadows, a cryptography decipherable only with special lenses or mirrors. This script contained instructions for rituals said to harness the forces of the elements, fire, water, earth, air, to gain knowledge, wealth, or even immortality. Some claimed these rituals could also influence fate by manipulating astral currents, invisible energies permeating the world. But these secrets were not meant for everyone. The secret societies deliberately isolated themselves from the public, creating an aura of mystery that only increased their allure. Public curiosity was like a fire fueled by rumors and half-truths, tales of powerful men forging conspiracies in dark chambers, of rituals summoning the powers of hell, of treasures hidden in sealed chests beneath ancient churches. Yet this silence was not absolute. The leading figures of the societies, men like Elias Ashmole or Adam Weishaupt, published writings and articles intended for the public, but in truth, these contained only fragments of true knowledge, like breadcrumbs leading to further secrecy. These texts were filled with cryptic allusions, alchemical parables, and encoded messages decipherable only by the initiated. Among the secret societies, the Templars stood out, an order founded in the 12th century and said to possess knowledge directly inherited from the earliest Christians. Rumors, little known and nearly forgotten, circulated that the Templars practiced a ritual called the Awakening of the Dragon, a ceremony in which they opened an ancient sarcophagus in an underground chamber beneath their main fortress in Jerusalem to channel the energy of a forgotten god. This ritual supposedly granted them superhuman powers, but also a curse that sealed their downfall when the church persecuted and destroyed them in 1307. Yet even after their official dissolution, the Templars didn't truly vanish. Their remnants lived on in other orders, their rituals adopted by the Freemasons and other groups. The Freemasons and the Illuminati remain the most famous of these groups, but even their stories are woven with myths. The Illuminati, officially disbanded in 1785, didn't really disappear. Under new names and structures, they allegedly continue to operate, invisible among us, their rituals and plans as secret as ever. There are reports, whispered legends surviving only in the darkest corners of libraries, of a great assembly, a meeting of all secret societies held every 99 years to plan the future of the world. Supposedly, this gathering begins with a ritual in which an eternal spark is kindled, a flame said to originate from the first fire of creation and possessing the power to alter realities. Occult practices and rituals were more than mere pastimes for all these organizations. They were the daily bread, the core of their existence. They believed that through these rituals, not only individual power but also cosmic harmony could be achieved. A little-known detail, there was a ritual called Binding of Souls, in which two members were united through a blood bond to link their spirits for all eternity. This ritual is said to be documented in the deepest archives of the Freemasons, but few have ever seen it, and those who practiced it often vanished without a trace, as if swallowed by the otherworld. The fascination with these secret societies lies in their dual nature. They were guardians of knowledge that could change the world and simultaneously prisoners of their own secrets. Their rituals, their symbols, their oaths, all were a tightrope walk between enlightenment and damnation, between power and paranoia. There were many secret societies, but ultimately, the two most famous remained the Freemasons and the Illuminati. And even though it is written that the Illuminati were destroyed, such an organization never truly disappears. With a new name, a new structure, it is already unrecognized among us. Occult practices and rituals were, well, part of the daily business for all these organizations. And even then, they drew us in like a light in the darkness, promising to show us what lies beyond the visible, if only we have the courage to follow the shadows. But let's return to occultism. Quackery and medicine, magic and esotericism were still closely intertwined in the early modern period, much like astrology and astronomy were at that time. Offering adventurers like Cagliostro, the Count of Saint Germain, or Casanova a broad field of activity. These figures can all almost be found active in Venice at the same time. In summary, one could say, occultism is a counter-movement to the Enlightenment. For the whole human being unites both sides within, the rational and the irrational. Our inclination toward the bizarre, the unfathomable, the magical is deeply rooted in us, just as is our fear of it. Today, parapsychology is also counted as part of the broad field of occultism, which is actually incorrect. The difference between occultism and parapsychology lies in the fact that in occultism, the initiated seek to fathom the hidden. Parapsychology aims to make the hidden manifest to everyone. I'll cover parapsychology in a separate podcast. Imagine you stand at the threshold of two worlds that touch but never fully merge. One is a labyrinth of secrets accessible only to the chosen, the other a bright, open space where every riddle is to be solved for all to see. That is the tension between occultism and parapsychology, two currents often confused but as different as night and day, yet driven by the same deep curiosity about the inexplicable. It was often said that parapsychology belonged to the broad field of occultism, a misconception that hung like a stubborn fog over the truth. In reality, they were like two sides of the same coin, similar yet pursuing different goals, taking different paths and guarding different secrets. Occultism was like an ancient temple whose gates were open only to the initiated, those ready, through initiation, study, and devotion, to master the hidden sciences. It was a world of shadows and symbols where knowledge was guarded like a treasure, losing its power if spread too widely. The initiated sought to fathom the hidden, not to reveal it to the world, but to use it for themselves, for power, enlightenment, or contact with forces beyond the human. They worked with rituals, alchemical formulas, astrological charts, and secret writings penned in a language understood by few, a language that dissolved the boundaries between matter and spirit. In contrast, parapsychology was like a lighthouse shining into the darkness, determined to unmask every secret and make it accessible to all. It was the science of the impossible, a field that investigated phenomena like telepathy, precognition, telekinesis, and ghostly apparitions, but with the tools of modern research, laboratories, statistics, controlled experiments. It aimed not to preserve the hidden for an elite, but to reveal it to all, pulling it from the mist of myths and legends into the light of reason. Instead of working in the dimness of a lodge, the parapsychologist sat in a sterile room, with sensors measuring heartbeats and devices recording electromagnetic fields. Instead of a ritual, he used hypnosis, questionnaires, and brain scans to understand how human consciousness might interact with the invisible. Yet these differences made both currents no less fascinating. Occultism was like a mystery novel whose final page only the bravest readers reached, a network of mystics who believed the world had more layers than what we see, and that these layers could be accessed through rituals and symbols. There were little-known stories of occult masters who, in trance, journeyed to other dimensions, where they spoke with beings neither human nor animal, but made of pure energy. One such master was said to have performed a ritual in a sealed chamber in Paris in the 19th century, using 7 candles, a mirror, and an ancient Egyptian amulet to gain a vision of the future, a vision that predicted events not occurring until 100 years later. These stories were rarely told, but they lived on in the archives of secret societies, encoded in documents decipherable only by the highest degrees of the Freemasons or Rosicrucians. Parapsychology, on the other hand, was like an adventure film where anyone could be the hero, where the secrets of the universe were conquered through courage and curiosity. Its pioneers, like J.B. Rhine or Rupert Sheldrake, conducted experiments that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. There were reports, often ignored by mainstream science, of experiments where subjects saw cards locked in sealed rooms or transmitted thoughts over great distances. A little-known detail, in the 1970s, a secret CIA project known as Stargate allegedly employed parapsychologists to see, distant locations and spy on enemy plans, a practice reminiscent of the occult seers of the Middle Ages, but supported by modern technology. The difference lay in access and purpose. The occultist sought the power of the hidden for himself, for a small group of chosen ones ready to bear the risks and secrets. He believed that knowledge lost its strength if spread too widely, that it was like a fire that could extinguish if too many touched it. Parapsychology, conversely, saw the hidden as a challenge, a puzzle to be solved to advance humanity. It believed that everyone had the potential to understand and use these phenomena, whether through education, research, or sheer willpower. Both approaches had their magic, their darkness, and their light. Occultism lured with the promise of power and mystery but threatened isolation and danger, like a treasure guarded by dragons. Parapsychology promised insight and progress but risked banalizing the marvelous, reducing it to numbers and charts. Yet both were expressions of the same profound human longing, to break the limits of reality, to understand what lies beyond the visible, and perhaps claim a piece of it for ourselves. In a world where science explained more and more yet left so much in shadow, occultism and parapsychology remained like two sparks of light, showing us that the universe was full of mysteries. Mysteries we could either guard for ourselves or reveal to all. Which path was right? That depended on whether you chose to embrace the darkness or seek the light, or perhaps both at once. Satanism. Satanism belongs to the occult phenomenon area. At the time, witches were accused of being in league with Satan and plotting against humanity, but this was far from the truth, for witchcraft is a religion, and a key component of this religion is magic, which fascinates so many people. In short, witchcraft is a pre-Christian nature religion. Or, as Silver Ravenwolf, an American witch and writer, put it, the craft of the witch is a life-affirming philosophy that follows moral rules, affirms nature, and strives to create harmony among people and to spiritually strengthen both oneself and others. They have a goddess and a god, and all of this has nothing whatsoever to do with Satan. An independent Satanism emerged only in the mid-19th century. People formed groups and dedicated their lives and souls to the Lord of Hell, Satan. Yet Satanism, as it took shape in later times, was a different story, a phenomenon that only found its own form in the mid-19th century. At that time, groups of rebels, mystics, and seekers began to band together, drawn by the idea of a dark counterpoint to the dominant Christian order. They founded secret doctrines, created rituals, and pledged their lives and souls to the Lord of Hell, Satan, a figure they saw not only as evil but also as freedom, rebellion, and a rejection of the oppressive morality of the Church. These groups viewed Satan not just as an enemy of God but also as a servant, an accuser, an adversary, a being that challenged the order of the world and opened new possibilities. In cultural history, Satan holds a firm, almost archetypal place. In nearly all religions, there were deities, spirits, or anonymous powers assigned either to light or darkness, good against evil, life against death, light against darkness. Mythologically, these dark forces often originated from fallen angels, beings of overwhelming beauty and power who once stood at God's side but then rebelled against him. Their leader Lucifer, light-bearer in Latin, became the icon of a fallen ideal, a creature both divine and damned. This duality made him so captivating. He was the brilliance of heaven that plunged into the depths, the bearer of light cloaked in shadow. Mythologically, these demons are said to stem from fallen angels, beings that once stood at God's side, then rebelled against him and finally gained their own domain, such as hell. The purpose was to rebel against the terribly strict regulations of the medieval and overpowering church. Satan is the classic name of the devil. It comes from Hebrew and means adversary, accuser, opponent, or enemy. The devil is also referred to by many other names, such as Lucifer. It means something like light bearer. This name most clearly embodies the positive aspects of the fallen angel. Satan corresponds to the devil, meaning he is seen as a servant of God, an enemy of God, and the Lord of evil. Thus, Satanists see themselves as antichrists, and in the black masses, which count among the occult practices, for example, the cross is hung upside down or prayers are recited backward. They see everything in opposition to what is established, good as evil, life as death, light as darkness. Thus, Satanism is the worship of the counter-divine. Many also sought to wield power. This they could achieve by engaging with supernatural phenomena. This gave them control over parts of the otherworldly realm that other people did not possess. And with the help of this otherworldly realm, one could exert power over others. Voodoo is also considered occult and is very often, though mistakenly, seen as black magic. To voodoo, I will make an own podcast episode. In reality, voodoo is a deeply loving religion, yet as with every religion, no matter how peaceful, there is always a dark counterpart. Voodoo has its roots in slavery and is closely tied to the political and social development of this hemisphere. Voodoo was first practiced in America and the Caribbean by slaves of African descent, whose culture was both feared and mocked. Slaves were not considered fully human. Their religion was dismissed as superstition, their priests vilified as witch doctors, their gods and spirits branded as evil. One of the only successful slave revolts in modern history occurred at the end of the 17th century, when slaves of African descent overthrew the European rulers and took control of the land. Many slaves were voodoo followers, and some of their military leaders were priests who inspired and organized their communities to fight for freedom. The Haitian Revolution sparked fear in other European and American colonies that relied on large numbers of slaves as plantation workers. The images and vocabulary of voodoo and other Afro-Caribbean religions became threatening and entrenched in these cultures as something terrifying, associated with bloodshed and violence. In most places, it was brutally suppressed. It became taboo. On the American continent and in the Caribbean, it is assumed to be a combination of various African, Catholic, and indigenous traditions. Voodoo is practiced worldwide. Voodoo has no holy scripture or worldwide authority. It is community-oriented and promotes individual experiences, self-determination, and responsibility. Voodoo varies in different parts of the world and differs from community to community. Here, we mainly focus on voodoo in New Orleans and Haiti. Voodoo encompasses the entirety of human experience. It is practiced by imperfect people who can use the religion for their own purposes. Whether it's voices and signs from the realm of the dead, guardian angels and vampires, sorcery, spirit summoning, and miraculous healings, occultism is more widespread than ever. In each of us lies a deep longing to connect with the supernatural, with a higher power, with something greater, wiser, or more powerful than we are. This applies to all strata of society, from the teenager to the medicine man of a remote indigenous tribe, to the scholar exploring the cosmos and seeking to unravel the secrets of the universe. It is this duality, this play of light and darkness, that makes occultism so irresistible. It speaks to our deepest desires, but also shows us the abysses into which we might fall if we are too greedy, too bold, or too naive. In the ancient writings, the secret codices of alchemists and magicians, hints of this dark attraction can be found. They tell of rituals in which participants risked their souls to catch a glimpse of eternal truth, of pacts with beings that were neither good nor evil, but simply existed beyond morality. These stories are more than legends. They are warnings and temptations alike, an echo of our own nature that yearns for the forbidden, for what lies behind the curtain. Thus, occultism becomes a mirror of our darkest desires. It shows us who we could be if we shed all inhibitions, if we cast off the chains of society, religion, and reason. It is the whisper in the night that tells us we are more than we believe, that we have the power to shape the world, but at what cost? This question makes it so captivating, so dangerous, so unforgettable. Occultism is no mere belief. It is an adventure into the depths of our own soul, a dance with darkness that shows us that light cannot exist without shadow. But we should not simply dismiss everything as negatively charged occultism. Rather, we should differentiate, for magic is within each of us. We are born with it and use it unconsciously even now, most often as a survival instinct. We could certainly talk about this for much longer, but unfortunately, this episode has now come to an end. I hope you enjoyed it and look forward to the next time. Until then, bye-bye.